Hi, and welcome to Tallahassee Connection, where we attempt to keep you informed as to what's happening with the state legislature in Tallahassee. I'm Senator Chris Smith, Chair of the Broward Legislative Delegation. And with us today, we have Senator Ellen Bogdanoff, who is a state senator from Broward and Palm Beach County. Ellen, as we enter the last weeks of session, one of the big issues is budget. Now, you served as the Finance and Tax Chair in the House for a number of years, and now as a freshman, you're in charge of Finance and Tax in the State Senate. Tell our viewers a little bit about what's going on with the budget and where do you see it's going this year?
Well, I think it is the issue. Unfortunately, we have nearly a $4 billion budget shortfall, and I think the key is that folks are looking for revenue, and we're not raising taxes, so trying to find revenue has become a huge challenge in the Senate and in the House. So what we're looking at is trying to reduce government spending, and working on it that way, and trying to see if we can, change the tax structure to make it more, favorable. But there's not a lot going on in finance and tax because it is usually the revenue producer.
Well, you have a tough situation this year because I know the governor and others have really called for a lot of tax cuts.
Right.
I mean, you couple that with some of the cuts in spending we have. I mean, how are we going to make that mesh together?
Well, I don't know if it's realistic. I certainly know where the governor's coming from. He wants to reduce corporate income tax. He wants to reduce property taxes, which are directly related to school funding. I think those are huge challenges. I mean, I came up with the idea of corporate income tax reduction several years ago, but if we are in a position to reduce taxes, which I don't necessarily believe we are, certainly we're going to look for more broad-based tax that's more, more for the people, the sales tax holidays, maybe looking to dial back, the cost of driver's licenses, things that will matter to folks. Certainly we want to tell the business community that we're open for business in Florida, but I think we can do that by reduced regulation and not necessarily in this year reducing corporate income tax.
Well, the big question we're all asking, will we finish on time?
I don't know. I've been doing this for about 7 sessions now, and there was only one session where we didn't finish on time, but certainly have been a part of many special sessions. And I think at the end of the day, we always manage to work it out, and we always manage to kind of meet the deadline. It's like anything else. It's procrastination, and then you end up kind of, making it happen. But I think there's a 50-50 chance. I don't want to bet odds on it, that's for sure.
Now, you and I serve on the Banking and Insurance Committee together, and we've dealt with a lot of issues this year, property, insurance, citizens. But our last meeting, we had an interesting discussion about PIP insurance.
Right.
And you have a great bill that's going after the fraud. Tell us a little bit, one, about the fraud that's going on in South Florida, and then how you're addressing it this year.
Well, I actually negotiated PIP in 2007, and unfortunately, we have seen a proliferation of new lawsuits in the last several years. We're probably the #1 state for fraud in the country, which is not really a good title that you want to have. So what we've tried to do is try to work on a lot of the issues that have created the PIP fraud and the staged accidents, and looking at what we can do with respect to certain PIP clinics that kind of use the system. We created a statutory scheme where it kind of breeds fraud, and we have to eat away at it every year. I mean, we're going to go a long way. If we can pass it this year, it'll go a long way to reduce, the lawsuits. It'll go a long way to reduce the fraud, and the problems that we're having in PIP. It's about, I think, they say anywhere between a $50 and a $200 a year tax on the people, which goes directly into their insurance premiums. It goes into their insurance premiums, but in essence, if we fail to deal with it as government, it ultimately becomes a tax on the people. So hopefully we can do a lot and pass that bill and start to fix the problems.
Well, I got to give you a compliment and tell a little bit about what's good about Tallahassee sometimes, and that's the compromise. Our first meeting, we had a long, drawn-out meeting, and everybody from every segment came and spoke about your bill and had a lot of problems with the bill. And then we tabled the bill, and about a week later, we came back, and you had a lot of amendments. I guess in the meantime, you met with the lawyers and the doctors and the insurance, and you met with all of the people involved, and you started actually piecing together and making a lot of changes to the bill. So sometimes we actually do meet with each other and compromise in Tallahassee, and your bill is a prime example of that.
Well, I think you always want to make sure that the cure is not worse than the disease. So you don't want to, exacerbate a problem that exists, so you have to get input from all of the people that are actually a part of the system. And as long as we can accomplish what we want to accomplish and not necessarily hinder people's ability to do their job, then we're all game for that, but you have to have that input. It's a process, and it's a process for a reason, because what the first thing you come out with is not necessarily what you end up with, but as long as we ultimately accomplish, we all have the same goal in mind. We want to get rid of the fraud, but we want people who are truly injured to be able to get assistance. And I think that's the key. We have to be able to accomplish that, and you have to have input from those people that are part of the system.
Yeah, that was good that we were all able to get together on that. Now, two issues I know our Broward residents are concerned about. One is an issue you're directly involved in, and that's pretrial release. Can you tell us a little bit about what is pretrial release and how are you dealing with that situation?
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation on pretrial release. Pretrial release is a program that was originally created for indigent defendants so that they didn't have to spend a long time in jail because they couldn't afford bond. Government has expanded that program far beyond indigents, and what we're just simply trying to do is bring it back to its original intent. You have the release part, which says you can get out of jail without paying bond, and then you have the provisions part, which the judge can actually release you with certain provisions. You know, maybe you have to wear a GPS, maybe you have to drug test. We're not taking away the judge's ability to provide conditions of release. What we are saying is if you can afford bond, then government's not going to basically let you out of jail for free. You're going to pay bond, and we're going to transfer that responsibility to the bond agent to make sure that you appear. The statistics bear out that people who bond out spend less time in jail. So, and also we find that their failure to appear rate is much lower, which is important. The failure to appear rate, the statistics that I have show it's between 12 and 17% under the pretrial release program. For bond agents, because they have a vested interest, a financial interest in making sure the defendant shows up, is a 2 to 3%. So it seems to make a lot of sense. There's a lot of resistance, I think, from the government side, simply because they're in control right now, and government has just a tendency to want to expand itself. And I think it's my job, and certain legislators, depending on your philosophy, to make sure that government has its role, an important role. But where they don't have a role, they need to get out of the way.
And last thing I wanted to hit on that's definitely everybody's talking about is the Medicaid reform. Broward County has been kind of the guinea pig for the last couple of years, and now we're looking to expand Medicaid reform. I know our Senate bill is very different from the House, and so that's one of those things for the listeners to know that we're probably going to have to conference on. We'll pass a bill, they'll pass a bill, and come together on that. But where do you see Medicaid reform going this year?
I think that's a tough question because we are so far apart from the House in terms of our approaches. I do like the Senate approach. I do like the idea that you're giving people a certain amount of money and saying, go out and get the services and have some skin in the game and make sure that you're making the choices that you want to make for your own care. And the House has their approach is 180 degrees. It's going to be interesting to see how we come to the middle, or maybe one side gives in and takes the other side. But there are so many issues. I mean, we don't even have an agreement on allocations for budget. So we've got a long way to go, and we've got 3 weeks left in session.
Now, it's funny for you to say that you agree with the Senate approach and disagree with the House approach. A few months ago, you were in the House. What's the difference? This is your first year in the Senate. What's the difference between that and the House?
I'm in the Senate. It's just, no, it's an interesting dynamic in terms of, you don't always agree with your body, and I don't know that I would agree necessarily with the House versus the Senate, but it's the role that you play, and I was in leadership in the Florida House, and obviously you're part of a team, and it's your job to bring forward the ideas of the particular team that you help make those decisions. So perhaps maybe if I had had more input in the House, it would look more like the Senate. I don't know.
Well, you've done a great job in the Senate so far. And the one thing about the Senate, we're more of a collegial body, and you'll find people crossing party lines and working together a little more. And I think over in the Senate, you've done a great job. You've come to me on the PIP bills and the pretrial release, and you've taken a lot of input. Right. So I guess you took the right blue or red pill when you got to the Senate, and you've become collegial. Well, you've always been collegial, but you've developed a Senate approach. And so hopefully over these last couple of weeks, we can all work as a Senate and work with the House and get out in time.
Absolutely. I just need to work on you to get you to vote for some of my stuff.
We're getting there. Thank you so much,
Thank
Senator.
you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in a moment. Hi, and welcome back to Tallahassee Connection. I have with me now two members of the Florida House of Representatives. We have Representative Bill Hager representing the north part of Broward County, and we have Representative Perry Thurston representing the central part of Broward County. We'll start with Representative Hager. You're new to the legislature and to Broward County. Why don't you tell the viewers who you are?
Senator, thank you, and thank you for the introduction. And yes, I represent the northern part of Broward County, and my district actually rolls into Boca Raton, Delray Beach, and a little bit further north, but Deerfield Beach for sure. By background, Senator, I am a lawyer, a Florida lawyer, and have been a member of the bar for a number of years. I'm a native of the upper Midwest. I grew up in a small town in rural Iowa, and with these hands worked the agricultural fields for 25 cents an hour as a young boy. And in any event, moved here with my family about 20 years ago. I was Commissioner of Insurance for the state of Iowa immediately before coming to Florida, and came here as an executive with the insurance company, and was in that position for about 10 years, and have been practicing law ever since then, and in particular in the area of insurance and reinsurance. And along the way, I've served in government. I just finished 7 years with the Boca Raton City Council, dealing with the instrumentalities of life, water and sewer and police and fire, very, very important things that, unless they get done, commerce and business and people's lives come to a stop. So I've always had a strong interest in government at the local level, and now happy to serve at the state level.
Well, welcome to the delegation.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here.
And Representative Thurston, you're also an attorney in Broward.
I am, and Chris, Senator Smith, I wanted to say that Representative Hager is doing an excellent job, and it's good to have a new colleague who's also an attorney who's serving with us, and we look forward to working together on those things that we can agree upon.
And how many years have you been in the House?
I've been in the House now for 4 years. I'm really at the halfway point, and I'll be moving on probably to run for one of those Senate positions in about 4 more years.
Just wait, Representative. Representative Hager, now you mentioned you're a former insurance commissioner and an attorney. That's a major issue in Tallahassee right now, between the property insurance and dealing with sinkholes, the citizens bill, as well as we're dealing with PIP now. So how do you see the insurance market in Florida, and what can we do to help the market?
Well, let me begin, first of all, by recognizing Representative Thurston, who I would characterize as probably among the fairest, probably tied for first among the fairest in terms of open-mindedness, collegiality. So it's great to have people like Perry to work with, along with yourself. In terms of the insurance issues, those are leading edge, and I think everybody at the legislative level is committed to getting our markets to work. These are arenas that government can and does do a bit in, but we really need to set government aside and get our marketplaces to work. And those markets need to work. Right now we have Citizens, which is a government-owned insurance company with over 1 million policies, homeowner policies, and it's become such a giant in the arena that it's kept the private sector out. So we're working to fine-tune Citizens, make changes in it to permit the private sector to come in as well. And you know, in the PIP area, working as well, obviously auto insurance, documented fraud in a significant way, and the effort there is to remove fraud from the PIP process. Sinkholes as well, a lot of fraud has emerged around that. And we simply cannot be part of a government that winks at fraud. All of us are committed to screening out and gleaning out the fraud so these programs can work the way they ought rightfully work.
Well, when we talk about Citizens, a lot's been made of the bills that are going through the legislature now will raise rates. And there's a lot of angst amongst our viewers that rates will be raised. Can you talk about the capitalization of Citizens and whether there's a need to raise rates, or why is that being done?
Well, you know, to me an analogy is this. If the state of Florida brought up a state of Florida grocery store, and the legislature told the grocery stores doing business throughout the state to charge half the price of Publix, it wouldn't be long before we'd have the largest grocery store known to man. That's what's happened at Citizens. Citizens' rates are half, and this is Citizens' own testimony. The prices they charge are about half of what they ought rightfully being charged. So the bills that are working their way through will step up the premium, and we need to do that. We ought not be subsidizing these premiums, and we ought to let this government insurance company charge the prices that are required to offset the claims.
A lot's been made of the capital that Citizens have. In your opinion, as a person that's followed this for a while, if we receive, say, a Category 3 or 2 or 3 next year, does Citizens have enough money to pay all the claims? Right
Chris,
now?
the answer on that is no, and the truth is, and the current law provides, that Citizens would be about